making headlines this hour. South Korea and the United States sign a joint military agreement aimed at deterring North Korea's possible use of nuclear bombs and other weapons of mass destruction. The blame game between U.S. President Barack Obama and his Republican opponents rages on, showing no signs of ending a partial shutdown of the U.S. government. Plus, state prosecutors conclude that no transcript for the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit exists at the National Archives and say there are traces that the document has been deleted. Well, these stories and more next on Primetime News. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Wednesday, October 2nd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Ji-hae.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin this evening with the latest on the hunt for the missing 2007 Inter-Korean Summit transcript. As far as the prosecution is concerned, the search is over.
They said Wednesday that the document isn't at the National Archives and suggested that files related to the cross-border meeting were erased. Here's our political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji with the report.
The Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office announced Wednesday that the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit transcript and tape recordings are not at the National Archives, saying that they were never transferred or stored there. Prosecutors said the conclusion was reached after going through all records, more than 7.5 million of them, that had been transferred from the Nomuhyun government to the state archives. Prosecutors said the original transcript had been uploaded in an electronic archive system at the presidential office called EG1 soon after the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit, but it was subsequently erased from the system. Prosecutors say they found traces of the erasure from a duplicate of the EG1 that President No took with him to Ponga village after his term ended. Prosecutors added that the summit minutes had not been tagged for transfer to the state archives and that the original transcript was deleted. But prosecutors say they have successfully recovered the deleted file. Prosecutors also found an edited version of the transcript saved in the duplicate of the EG1, which they say is virtually identical to the copy the National Intelligence Service has. Starting next week, prosecutors plan to summon President No's staff who stored and transferred the presidential records to the National Archives. An official at the presidential office said Wednesday that the missing presidential record is a grave event that should have never taken place. The ruling Saenuri Party demanded former presidential office staff for President No and the main opposition Democratic Party apologize for quote-unquote destroying the summit transcript and take responsibility. Saying that it will keep an eye on how the probe unfolds, the Democratic Party stressed that the prosecution should also reveal how the ruling party got its hands on the transcript and used it before the December presidential election. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
And moving now to the annual defense dialogue between South Korea and the United States. The two allied nations signed a deterrent strategy against increasing North Korean threats in Seoul on Wednesday.
But they failed to reach a compromise on the issue of transfer of wartime operational control from the U.S. to Korea. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Han Da-eun explains how the peninsula's defense strategy may come custom-tailored.
South Korean Defense Minister Kim Kwan-jin and U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel sat down for the 45th Security Consultative Meeting in Seoul on Wednesday, after which they adopted a joint declaration that contains 13 military agreements. Among them is the endorsement of a tailored deterrent strategy against North Korean nuclear and missile threats.
South Korea and the U.S. have completed a tailored deterrent strategy optimized to effectively address rising North Korean nuclear threats after its third nuclear test.
Under the strategy, the integration of the Korea-U.S. alliance will be strengthened to maximize the deterrent effect against North Korean nuclear threats sorted by scenario. And when signs of North Korean nuclear activity are detected, the combined forces will use all possible military capabilities available from the ground, sea, and air to launch countermeasures. The two defense chiefs also reaffirmed the need to work together for a comprehensive, interoperable missile defense system, which includes the kill chain and Korea Air and Missile Defense System currently being developed by the Korean military. But there was no conclusion on the matter of the transfer of the wartime operational control from the U.S. to Korea set for 2015. Secretary Hagel said he takes the OPCON issues raised by the Korean military seriously, but added the U.S. will not make any decisions now.
We've had good discussions regarding the timing of OPCON transfer, and I look forward to continuing consultations on this issue in the weeks and the months ahead.
Minister Kim had asked Washington in May to delay the OPCON transfer in light of North Korea's nuclear threats. The two countries have agreed to immediately form a working group that'll regularly discuss and assess combat readiness of South Korea, which is the prime condition of the transition. 한다은, Arirang News.
The Asian Development Bank has slashed its growth forecast for Asia this year to 6%, down from the 6.6% projected in April.
The bank also cut its outlook for 2014 to 6.4%. A senior economist for the bank attributed the cut to the weak economic performances from China and India and concerns about the impact on developing economies of the United States' planned rollback of its stimulus program. The bank left its outlook for Korea unchanged for this year, but revised down its projection for 2014 to 3.5%, a drop of 0.2 points. Now, we reported yesterday on embattled conglomerate Dongyang Group's liquidity crisis, but Dongyang is not the only leading conglomerate that has been tottering under increasing debt coupled with sluggish earnings.
With the economic outlook at home and abroad remaining bleak, it doesn't look their debt burdens will be resolved anytime soon. Our Yoo Ji-hae has more on the nation's tottering conglomerates.
New fears of a wave of corporate bankruptcies were spurred when Dongyang Group, one of Korea's biggest conglomerates, filed for court receivership to avert bankruptcy early this week. Leading up to the filing, the group's debt ratio had increased more than eightfold to 1,231% last year from 5 years ago, a prime indicator of its declining financial health. The story is similar for other local conglomerates like Hanjin and Hyundai Group, both of which have debt ratios of over 400%. It's no surprise then that the total amount of debt held by the nation's top 30 conglomerates nearly doubled to about 600 trillion won, or roughly $550 billion in just 5 years.
It's easy to think that Korean conglomerates are doing well, as the earnings of some major companies like Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor are high. But with the exception of those two, the earnings of many of the rest of the conglomerates are slowing down.
In prosperous times, it could work for conglomerates to take on billions of dollars of debt to expand, but the current economic conditions are instead leading them to overestimate their capacity, which has in turn brought them huge losses.
It's hard to see any development among the conglomerates with this kind of management paradigm. The conglomerates will have to take some innovative steps to maintain their financial health.
With so many conglomerates facing mounting debt, experts now warn about the problems it could cause for the economy as a whole. Yoo Ji-hae, Arirang News.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features restrictions is on the rise. Closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature, circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
In the United States, the latest report.
Unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
Meaning came on the maneuver, trying to cover up the South's true intentions.
Voters in the United States are grumbling over the recent government shutdown, but the blame game between President Barack Obama and his Republican opponents continues. Yoo Li-an has more on the political battle that's put hundreds of thousands of workers out without a paycheck.
The first partial government shutdown in 17 years forced hundreds of thousands of federal workers to go home Tuesday, out of work and out of luck.
You really want to know what I think of Congress right now? Honestly, I think they need to get their act together, stop acting like children and pass the budget.
The stalemate in Congress failed to stop the closure of federal agencies and government services across the country on Tuesday. The Democrat-led Senate had, for the fourth time, thrown out a spending plan by the Republican-led House of Representatives that aims to undermine President Obama's health care plan.
Republicans in the House of Representatives refused to fund the government unless we defunded or dismantled the Affordable Care Act. They've shut down the government over an ideological crusade to deny affordable health insurance to millions of Americans.
He also urged the Republicans to raise the $16.7 trillion debt ceiling that the government expects to hit on October 17th, saying a failure to do so would be devastating to the U.S. economy. A week-long government shutdown for now could cut the country's economic growth by 1/3 of a percentage point, according to Goldman Sachs. While Republicans and Democrats remain at loggerheads over the budget bill, core parts of Obamacare went into effect Tuesday. The online health insurance marketplaces met with higher than expected demand on their first day live. Around 3 million people have visited the federal website since midnight, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. The Obama administration hopes to have 7 million people signed up during the first year, and eventually at least half of the nearly 50 million, or 15% of Americans, who don't have health insurance. The healthcare plans are slated to begin next year. Yoo Ji-hae, Arirang News.
Unless you are a member of the armed forces, you probably don't get many chances to catch a ride on a military helicopter or a tank. But you'll be provided with those experiences and more at a military fair hosted by the Defense Ministry here in Korea that will run through the end of the week. Arirang's Kim Hyun-bin reports from Gyeong City in South Chungcheong Province.
One day after the nation held its largest Armed Forces Day celebration in 10 years, the Ministry of National Defense opened the 11th Ground Forces Festival in Gyeong City on Wednesday. From attack helicopters to heavy artillery, there's much to see. But unlike other exhibitions or events, visitors have full access to the vehicles. Special military performances and maneuvers are scheduled throughout the day, where they reenact rescue missions, with heavy artillery being fired and stunts being executed. There are also opportunities to hop on a helicopter for an airborne tour, or hitch a ride in a tank.
This is my first time on a military helicopter. It was fun and it wasn't scary as I thought. I hope I can have this opportunity again.
The 11th Ground Forces Festival is the largest annual Army event that's open to the public, where visitors can get up close and personal with Korea's military might. One of the most popular sections is a shooting range, where people got to fire off blank rounds.
It was fun to actually fire a gun that active soldiers use.
If you want to get your hands a little dirtier, you can test your might at the boot camp section by climbing an artificial rock wall or jumping out of mock towers, which are used for parachute training. The festival runs through the Sunday, October 13th. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Gyeong.
We turn now to the pressing topic of Korea's aging society. While the rest of the world celebrates the International Day of Older Persons on October 1st, that day in Korea is reserved for Armed Forces Day. So today's the day the nation celebrates the elderly.
For more on how Koreans are raising awareness about issues affecting the elderly on this special day, our Kim Ji-yeon joins us now in the studio. Hello there.
Hey guys, well, the day was designated by the United Nations in 1990 to raise awareness about issues concerning the aging population, which in Korea, like many other nations, is growing at a very rapid pace. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon warned that by the year 2050, the number of older persons will be twice the number of children in developed countries, and the number of older persons in developing countries is expected to double this number. And in turn, this trend is expected to have profound effects on countries and individuals. In Korea, there was a variety of events around the nation to celebrate the Day of Older Persons, including providing a grand feast for the elderly people living in the community. But a lot of Koreans have their own ways of commemorating the day, and I was lucky enough to follow two people who have dedicated their lives to helping the elderly by volunteering at a local senior center. Take a look.
Hong Moon-jae and Ko Myung-soon are on their way to check in on an elderly lady they think is in her 70s, identified only by her surname Lim. Im suffers from memory loss as a result of Alzheimer's disease, one of the most common type of dementia, and lives alone. Hong and go check in on her at least once a week to make sure she's eating and taking care of her health, but they'll go more often if there's a problem. Once they found Lim with a lump on her head and tried to get her some medical care. Another time they found her with a pot of weak broth, and when they asked about it, they discovered she'd forgotten how to make dinner, so they did the cooking for her. Hong, who is 68 years old, and Ko, who is 56, have been volunteering together at the Kangdong Center for Dementia for 3 years.
I always try to think about how I can better treat her mind and heart. I really feel happy when I do this, but it's really hard to explain my feelings in words, to fully convey what I feel.
The number of people with dementia has risen steadily in Korea in recent years. According to the Ministry of Health and Welfare, the country's elderly population, defined as those who are 65 and over, had risen more than 17% over the past 4 years through the end of 2012, while the number of elderly people with dementia had risen around 27% in the same period. The ministry estimated that around 1 in 10 Koreans has dementia and predicted the number would expand to 1 million in 2024. To address the situation, the city of Seoul started building centers for senior citizens in 2008, dedicated to preventing dementia among the elderly. There are centers in almost every district in the city of Seoul, and they offer programs tailored to the needs of the people in each community.
Jian, tell us more about these centers. Are they similar to nursing homes for advanced dementia patients?
Well, these centers are quite different from nursing homes. While nursing homes care for patients that already have dementia, these centers are for those that are easing symptoms of those who showed early signs of the condition. The center offers free checkups for anyone over the age of 60 and organized social gatherings to keep people active. People who show early signs of dementia are eligible for a free consultation with a counselor who can give them some options for their next steps forward.
Well, that's certainly a dramatic rise in the number of dementia cases. Are there any ways to prevent dementia?
There certainly are. Local experts recommend a lifestyle change for people in all ages that can help reduce the risk of dementia. Dr. Han Seol-hee of Konkuk University Hospital emphasized the importance of preventing dementia at an early stage.
Compared to other parts of our body like the stomach, the brain, once it's damaged, cannot recover as quickly. So it's important to prevent or mitigate symptoms of dementia before or at the early stages of memory loss.
As the teenage years are a crucial time for the development of brain cells, experts say teens should be exposed to a variety of experiences, such as learning how to play an instrument or taking trips to new places. Those in their 20s should avoid heavy consumption of alcohol, which could accelerate damage to these cells. Depending on the person's weight and the volume of alcohol in a drink, that's less than 3 cups of soju a day or 75 millimeters of alcohol. For those in their 30s and 40s, experts recommend exercising for at least 1 hour 3 times a week. Those in their 50s and 60s are advised to have a brain scan at least once every 5 years.
Good tips there. Thank you very much, GM, for that report.
Sure.
Professional women golfers are descending on Asia for a series of LPGA tournaments starting in China.
And Stephen Che joins us now from the Sports Center to tell us more about the landmark event. Hello there.
Hey guys, the LPGA's first step in the 5-tournament Asia Tour is the Rainwood LPGA Classic in Beijing, the first ever official tour event to be held in China. All the top golfers are in tow for Rainwood, which opens on Thursday. That includes world number 1 Park In-bi and third-ranked Stacey Lewis as they look to finish strong on the tour money list. And speaking of money, the total purse for the 5 stops is $8.9 million. After China, the tour will make stops in Malaysia, South Korea, and Taiwan for the next 3 weeks in a row, then take a week off before closing out in Japan. And heading to the pitch, Bayer Leverkusen and strikers Son Heung-min will take on Real Sociedad in a few hours in match number 2 of the UEFA Champions League group stage. Taking place at home in Bayer Arena, Son and his Leverkusen squad are seeking to turn things around with a win against the Spanish League team after a first match loss to the EPL's Manchester United last month. As for Son, he'll be looking for his first Champions League goal after recording an assist in the previous match. And coming home, it's time for Wednesday's top KBO matchup. The Hanwha Eagles took on the LG Twins in Seoul. It was a high-scoring affair, and in the first, LG scored the first run on Jung Sung-hoon's double. It's 1-0. Now we see Hanwha coming back with 2 in the second before LG rallies for 5 runs, including Park Yong-taek's 2-run double. It's 6-2 Twins. Now the Eagles in the third answer back with 5 of their own, all started by Kim Tae-gyun's 3-run homer to left. Hanwha leads 7-6. LG gets 2 back at the bottom to take back the lead before the Eagles rack him up in the 5th and beyond, and they go on to win with a final score of 11-8. And looking at the scores from around the league, SK blanks Kia 9-0, Samsung defeats Lotte 9-2, and Nexon beats NC 2-1. That does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Let's go over to Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center.
Bo-kyung, hello. We hear that a tropical storm is on its way.
Yes, the 23rd tropical storm of the season, Fito, is currently passing through Okinawa in Japan, and it is expected to arrive in Korea over the weekend. However, as the storm's path may change, please check back for future updates. Now, moving on to our satellite map, the nation will gradually be under the influence of a high-pressure system. This is why we're seeing clear skies throughout the nation. Now, tomorrow is National Foundation Day here in Korea, and the weather is looking absolutely bright and sunny. The average daytime high around the nation should hit 25 degrees with abundant sunshine. But morning temperatures in most parts of the nation should drop to the low teens, so please be sure to grab a thick cardigan or jacket before you head out. Now, moving on to tomorrow's forecast, Seoul should make it to 22 degrees and cities down south should get up to the mid-20s. Now, let's see how other regions are looking. The morning temperature in Daejeon should drop to 8 degrees before reaching 22 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, Dokdo and Mangkumgang should peak at 20 and 13 degrees respectively. Well, that's all I have for you this hour. Have a wonderful evening, and here is the international weather for viewers around the world.
And that's our broadcast on this Wednesday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening. We'll see you soon.